Hi, I'm Jill Clifton of Landscape of Mothers, and I've often said and heard the idea that parenting's such a bummer because kids don't come with manuals. And foundationally, that's true, right? No book popped out with the baby, but I think that's only partially true. I think we did used to have manuals, but I think those manuals were in the form of our community members. That is, so for most of human history, we lived in tribes of 20 to 100 or so people. A lot of those would have been people we'd known much or all of our lives. Kids would have played together in multi-age groups, and so older kids take care of younger kids, and so we would have had some parenting experience, experience taking care of small children when we were young. And so we would know something, and that's getting less and less common. It's also more common for girls to have done things like babysitting than it is for boys to have done that kind of work as kids. I also think it's getting less common that we use young kids. Like I was babysitting when I was 10 or 11. But that was in the way back days. But I don't think people do that anymore. And I didn't. When my kids were babysitting age, I opted for at least high schoolers. And so I think there's just getting to be less and less opportunities for older kids to hang out with younger kids unless you happen to have a bunch of siblings or a bunch of cousins. But so some of our experience would have come in that realm when in the more tribal days. And the other place that we would have had a manual coming from is parents that were slightly ahead of us in parenting and grandparents. And not that they would have done a lot of the work for us in those groups. Usually most of that actual caring group stuff was in these multi-age child groups. But if we ran into something we didn't know how to deal with, or that we were really struggling to deal with, help would have been so close all the time. And so in that sense, then, our kids almost would have come with manuals. That is, someone had the experience, someone had dealt with something like this before. And if you needed help, it was right there at your fingertips. And probably people could see it happening that you needed help, and it would have just materialized, right? You might not even have to ask. And so in that sense, I think there was a continuity of knowing how to care for all age groups in all ways, in many permutations of how life could have panned out. And so the manual was there, and we've lost it because we've divided ourselves into single age cohorts or very narrow cohorts. And that those cohorts are out doing specific things in the world, and very little of it is actually knowing how to take care of each other. So I do think we used to have a manual, and I think that the solution now is mentorship. And that mentorship can be because you have a friend who's further along in parenting than you are. You grab that person and do your best to get some information you need from them. In these days, though, where we're all so siloed, it's very, very difficult to find somebody who has the time or energy. And, but, and then, if you need to, there's also hiring people. I am a parenting mentor, and I do this because I've thought a ton about parenting. I am a great resource for a lot of the different things that can happen in parenting, the different ways our relationships work, the different age groups. I have been through parenting in a million different ways myself, and it started with placing my first baby for adoption, which was my very first parenting decision. And so over the years, I've thought a lot about parenting and what it means and how our actions impact our children, how our relationships impact each other. And so if you need mentorship, I recommend building relationships with people who are ahead of you in one way or another, whether it's friends or whether it's professionals or people who are doing this for work. It's worth having a mentor. It's kind of a rent-a-grandma situation. So good luck out there.